All right, let's bring in now Sky News contributor Kosha Gada. Kosha, great to see you. Look, firstly, what's your reaction to this result? There have been some critical states that have flipped in Trump's direction. Were there any surprises for you?
I would say, Shari, no surprises in terms of the cautiously optimistic scenario that people were holding. Nobody knew what was going to happen, but there's a bit of a rising tide phenomenon. And once we saw which way the momentum was moving, everything was falling into place. For me, I just say, what a ride. This has been the greatest story arc in American political history. If you think about where it started, and it was always going to be a trilogy, knowing Trump, with where it started in 2016 and this outside wrecking ball billionaire businessman came in, defeated the Bush dynasty, the Clinton dynasty, 16 other handy Republican candidates, won, delivered on a lot of his promises, got hit with COVID and a change in the election system, January 6th, all of that. And then you look at where he was on rock bottom, sort of arc 2 of that story, everything he faced from being kicked off the ballot to getting shot, indictments, being raided, being indicted, convicted, all of that. And now to come and do this thing, which is, it really is a repudiation, I think, of the entire machine against him that was going for that, because he has swept all 7, we think, it's not official yet, but he's on track to sweep all 7 swing states. We'll see what happens. Taking the majority in the Senate, the House looks quite strong, and possibly even the popular vote, which hasn't happened in 20 years. So that's a huge moment, I think, in U.S. history to look back on. And in that sense, I guess it is surprising if you look at the whole story arc of the trilogy that has been Trump's political career.
I mean, we talk about his political comeback, as you just have when you reference the impeachments, all the civil and criminal cases against him, the political lawfare, his near-death experience where that gunshot just came centimetres away from his brain. He could easily be dead. But Kosha, we also forget that the 7th of January, 2021, half of his party had abandoned him. He was politically toxic. Not just his party, but a lot of Americans turned away in horror. So even from that perspective, for him to win back the confidence of the people to be elected in such a decisive result tonight is quite astonishing. What do you think were the most successful tactics that he used and his campaign used that made this happen?
100%. So I think it's 3 things: the message, the messaging, and the mechanics. The message, which you talked about at the top of your show, the policy positions, where he always was trusted as somebody who was a strong leader, had a different way of looking at trade, immigration, different economic things, culture wars, and all of that. So he was always strong on that, and he just never relented on that. And he really had his finger on the pulse of where the gap was, frankly, in the Republican establishment, as well as the Democrat Party on that issue set. The second is the messaging, where he has always been the king of media, and the breadth and range that he showed, where not only traditional media, which is the industry he grew up in, but also embracing podcasts and TikTok and social media and rallies and all of that. He was just able to cut through against a very adversarial media and get his message out. Also, I think attracting these endorsements from very high-profile, serious people in their fields, from Musk to Rogan to RFK and others, helped with that messaging. And then the last thing I think is the mechanics, which is probably the most underreported story, Shari, but I think we're going to hear more about that in the analysis to come, which is the ground game that the Republicans were always behind the 8 ball on. The Democrats were always so much more superior to that, especially under Obama. And the way he did it kind of under the radar, he outsourced a lot of it to these outside grassroots groups rather than having it all done by the campaign or the RNC. And the way they were able to get Republicans to embrace early voting and rack up these leads coming into election night, which positioned them so strongly, something that had never happened before, I think is probably the untold secret ingredient of what put him over the edge tonight.